Proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, I'm declaring a democratic emergency. Brexit is under threat from the globalist regime within the Tory party who are reportedly scheming to push us back into the clutches of the EU. And to make matters worse, this is the guy who's just been hired into the heart of government.
It will destroy the public services in this country. It will compound the social crises that many of us are living through. Or we can choose to stop Brexit, and we can choose to stop Brexit.
So, my big question tonight is high tax hunt conspiring to overturn Brexit? And is the return of Boris Johnson the only way to rescue the government from Ramona's? I'll explore in my digest next and later in the Media Buzz before I get the verdict of my superstar panel. Carol Malone, Nigel Nelson and Belinda de Lucy. Co-founder of Vote Leave and Britain's first UKIP MP, Douglas Carswell, will be here live at 10:22. After exposing themselves as virtue-signalling hypocrites for abandoning their rainbow armbands, should England have taken the knee in Qatar? Lawrence Fox thinks Gareth Southgate's men are an embarrassment to the country for their gesture politics against Iran. The Reclaim leader joins me live at 9:35 before former Three Lions legend Matt Le Tissier weighs in on the debuts of England and Wales at the controversy-filled tournament. He's live at 10:45. Do Harry and Meghan really deserve an award for making unproven claims of royal racism? Unproven being the operative word. King Charles and Duchess of Sussex biographer Tom Bower and broadcaster Jenny Barnett battle it out on the clash. I'll get your verdict too. As she launches an appeal today, should we even be considering returning ISIS bride Shamima Begum's UK citizenship? We'll debate at 10:30. Plus, as David Beckham's talentless son is mocked for a cocktail...
Very experimental. I love trying to make new drinks, trying new recipes. I'm a nutter in the kitchen.
A sting in the tail, courtesy of Joe Lycett, has made golden balls look like I'm sure you can see where I was going with that.
I never expected to hear from you. It was an empty threat, designed to get people talking. In many ways, it was like your deal with Qatar, David. Total from the start.
More on a weekend of Beckham blunders in the Media Buzz coming up in the 10 hour. We'll have tomorrow's newspaper front pages as soon as they drop, and a brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass on the way too. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. But the news first on GB News. Let's get the headlines at 9 with Tamsin Roberts.
Dan, thank you and good evening from the GB newsroom. Wales are back in the World Cup for the first time since 1958 and have drawn with the USA in their first match in Qatar, with Gareth Bale scoring the equaliser from the penalty spot. Earlier, England won their opening match against Iran, winning 6-2 with goals scored by Bellingham, Saka, Sterling, Rashford and Grealish. Both Wales and England, along with 5 other European teams, decided not to wear a rainbow-coloured anti-discrimination armband in their matches. It's over concerns players may be penalised with a yellow card on the pitch for wearing a non-sanctioned kit. While speaking after the England match earlier, these fans say they're happy with the result.
I thought they really pulled it out of the bag. It was a bit of a slow start, but once they got going, they really got going and they just couldn't stop them, really.
We were expecting all that negativity, flat back 5, but no. Goals, football, intensity and, strangely enough, a comfortable win.
If we'd have carried on, it could have been 8 or 9, but we'll settle for that. Fantastic performance. Can't really criticise anyone. Just thought everyone was pretty faultless.
The Prime Minister says he will place innovation at the heart of his government agenda. Addressing business leaders earlier, Rishi Sunak said re-establishing stability is the critical first step to stabilise the UK economy. He told delegates controlling inflation was key to improving living standards and to putting the economy on a stable footing for the future. A court has heard a woman who left London to join so-called Islamic State 7 years ago was influenced by a determined and effective ISIS propaganda machine. Shamima Begum's lawyers say she should have been treated as a child trafficking victim. The 23-year-old is appealing the removal of her UK citizenship after it was revoked when she was found in a Syrian refugee camp. She's denied any involvement in terror activities. Human rights lawyer Harjap Singh Bangal says Begum should be treated the same as a British citizen.
The issue is, if she's a British citizen, which she is because she holds a British passport, or she did hold a British passport, a British citizenship, then should she be treated like other British citizens, or should she be sent to a country where she's not born in, she hasn't lived in, just because the basis that her parents came from there?
An earthquake in Indonesia has killed 162 people and injured more than 700, according to local officials. The epicentre of the 5.6 magnitude earthquake was the West Java region, about 75 kilometres from the capital, Jakarta. Rescuers are trying to reach survivors trapped under the rubble after at least 25 aftershocks hit the region. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Dan.
Forget the conjectures and the denials. This weekend's revelation on the front page of the Sunday Times shows the UK is facing a democratic emergency. As I predicted, the Ramonas within the Tory establishment have used the defenestration of Boris Johnson and Liz Truss to threaten our hard-fought Brexit. So the newspaper reported, quote, senior government figures are planning to put Britain on the path towards a Swiss-style relationship with the European Union. That would, of course, involve more liberal EU migration, payments to the EU and a stepping up of the role of the European Court of Justice. So yet, rather than use our Brexit freedoms to see us thrive across the world, this anti-democratic, globalist regime, who the masses haven't voted for, led by Fishy Rishi Sunak, wants to see us handcuffed to the bloc and actually block the biggest democratic mandate in British history. We all know who is behind this. Here's Ramona Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, who campaigned for a second referendum and a Norway Plus model that would see the UK tied to the single market and continuing to grant free movement. He is now inexplicably pulling the strings. So this is how he put it publicly when speaking to the BBC on Friday.
Having unfettered trade with our neighbours and countries all over the world is very beneficial to growth. I have great confidence that over the years ahead we will find outside the single market we are able to remove the vast majority of the trade barriers that exist between us and the EU.
But let me tell you, the suspicions all around Westminster are that high-tax Hunt himself is responsible for the leak to the Sunday Times. As the Daily Telegraph's Christopher Hope revealed today, apparently the report stemmed from a post-autumn statement meeting between journalists from the Sunday Times and Jeremy Hunt himself. As the former Tory leader Ian Duncan-Smith put it, the Chancellor needs to himself slap down this story. This should never have got going, and if he meant it or not, he needs to make it clear this is not what the government is about. Now, Sunak tried to undo the damage today during a speech to the CBI.
On trade, let me be unequivocal about this. Under my leadership, the United Kingdom will not pursue any relationship with Europe that relies on alignment with EU laws. Now, I voted for Brexit. I believe in Brexit. And I know that Brexit can deliver, and is already delivering, enormous benefits and opportunities for the country.
But there has been no denial from Hunt that he is the source of the Sunday Times story. So unless Sunak immediately sacks his chancellor, then I think the damage is done. This regime cannot be trusted to protect Brexit and keep us out of the single market. At the very least, there is a move towards the disastrous Theresa May Chequers deal that we must not forget Sunak voted for. But you also can't trust the likely next Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who spent months campaigning for a second referendum to thwart our vote.
Our options must include campaigning for a public vote and nobody is ruling out Remain as an option. We've agreed that it must be subject to another referendum.
Let's try it out now. So the Tories say, we're out. The Lib Dems say, we're staying. Labour says...
If you vote for Labour, the public will decide in a referendum. And there's now only one way. Whether in this government or the next, put it to the people.
So if you're feeling politically homeless tonight, then join the club. The bombshell Brexit report came just 24 hours after the newspaper revealed Sunak is now great friends with Gordon Brown and is seeking help from the new Labour Chancellor. It's hardly a surprise, given Thursday's horror show budget delivered the UK our biggest tax burden in history, something Brown would have fully endorsed. Of course, the whole political establishment, MSM, is now giving up on Brexit and rowing behind this campaign to rejoin over time. Remainer Piers Morgan tweeted, "It's time to admit that Brexit has been a disaster exacerbated by pandemic, war, and have another referendum, which, as this poll indicates, would surely result in a substantial majority now voting for us to return to the EU." Well, to hell with that. It's time now for Brexiteers to stop living in a fantasy world that the project has been delivered and that the UK is safe from the interference of the EU. Brexit is under threat. It's under threat now. And while Jeremy Hunt remains in number 11, I predict things are going to get a whole lot worse. But to respond now, my superstar panel, Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, political editor for the Sunday Mirror Nigel Nelson, and the former Brexit Party MEP and political campaigner Belinda de Lucy. Carol Malone, why did Jeremy Hunt, if he wasn't responsible for this report in the Sunday Times, not come out and deny it? This man is behind this. This is how he thinks, and he is the Chancellor, Carol.
Completely. You know, it's incredible to think that 2 months ago he was nowhere, he was nothing, and suddenly now he's leading a campaign to get us back into the EU. You know, Sunak now, I think, has to prove to the British people that he is in favour of British independence. He has to show us that, because I don't believe for 1 second it's safe in his hands either. And you know, this Swiss-style thing is the worst. It's the worst option of all, because, you know, Switzerland has open borders to people from the EU. It has to pay the EU money, as you know, and it has to follow some of the EU laws. Every single reason why we wanted to leave, you know, we didn't want our laws decided by a group of unelected bureaucrats. So here we go again. You know, it is the biggest betrayal of the British people. We fought for years, even after the vote, to push this through, and now we're going to have to fight again. And you know, the Remainers have been waiting in the wings for a very long time, and they've blamed every single disaster on Brexit. You know, they've tried to say everything that's happened to this country is because of Brexit. It's so not. The Eurozone is in recession as we speak. The OECD said recently that our economy was more resilient than many of the countries in the Eurozone, Germany for one and Italy for another, which seems... So we're not in where we are, because it's a worldwide phenomenon. So but you're right, as long as Hunt remains in situ, I think Brexit is in danger, because he's the one behind the scenes who's been working for the past 2 years while he's been doing nothing else. And now he's mobilising the troops now, and I fear.
Well, Belinda de Lucy, I'm fascinated to know what you think, because, of course, you were a former Brexit Party MEP. You know, the Brexit Party formed because Nigel Farage didn't trust the Conservative Party to deliver Brexit. How do you feel tonight, Belinda? Do you think Brexit's under threat?
I'm not surprised at all we're in the situation we are in. The muscle and machinery of Remain and the globalists and the supernaturalists, nationalists, has been so strong ever since 2016. Brexit has been at risk. And my God, the British people fought with their sweat, blood and tears to just get it across the line in 2019. And I know it's a lot to ask these wonderful democracy-defending and freedom-loving Brits to re-engage, but re-engage they must, because without doubt, fundamental self-determining of our own laws is at risk. People keep saying Brexit, and Brexit is now being associated with the negative. The press have done this, politicians have done this. Brexit is not an economic policy. It was just a constitutional change. It was just reallocating powers from unaccountable foreign politicians and foreign courts back to our national politicians. Why? The question is, why do people want foreign unaccountable politicians and courts to rule over us, to make our policies? Why? What is the reasoning behind it? Because it is dodgy as bleep.
And totally anti-democratic. No, I couldn't agree with you more, Belinda. Nigel Nelson, you think we need to rejoin the single market?
Yes, I do.
But that's not Brexit.
Well, I don't know what everyone thinks Brexit is.
Well, it certainly wasn't being part of the single market.
Leaving the EU is absolutely right.
No, the EU institutions.
Well, okay.
That's all it was, yes or no? We voted to be out of the institutions.
Let's work on the basis of making Brexit work. That we didn't get the oven-ready deal that Boris Johnson promised. We got something half-baked. So, if you had the whole of the UK under a common rule, that would solve your Northern Ireland problem. Would you accept us just going back into the single market, provided it didn't come with the string of free movement and the European Court of Justice?
I don't think that could happen.
No.
They're not going to let us back in.
I wouldn't accept it. I wouldn't accept it. Well, I simply wouldn't accept it because it's not what we voted for. And I'm going to quote from the 2019 Conservative Manifesto, which said very clearly, we will keep the UK out of the single market, out of any form of customs union, and end the role of the European Court of Justice. That is why we gave Boris the landslide in 2019.
But do you not think that frictionless trade with Europe is actually a goal to go for?
We can get that anyway.
It comes at a cost.
But the problem has been is, we haven't been able to maximise the benefits of Brexit because the pandemic happened, because of the war in Europe, because inflation.
Well, the pandemic literally happened within weeks of us leaving.
Completely. So we haven't been able to maximise what we should have been able to do.
I mean, we don't actually know the good sides of Brexit or even the bad sides because of the pandemic.
You must admit the Eurozone is in trouble too. Germany's in trouble.
The world's
Italy's in trouble.
Yeah, I agree.
So they are worse off. And I know we think our our tax rate is high here, and yes, it is. But there are countries in the Eurozone where the tax burden is higher than it is here.
Not only that, in fact, unemployment in the Eurozone is 2.5% higher than it is in the UK. But when you say Brexit work or not work, what do you mean? It doesn't even make sense. Would you say to Australia that self-governs, how does your self-governing work or not work?
It's
it is
democracy.
Not policy. This is just about
what I'm saying is that
government.
That the effects of Brexit have been masked by external events like the pandemic. And all I'm looking for here is where we can find some common ground to make things better.
But we don't want common ground with them.
No, common ground comes at a cost, and a very, very severe
we can't even begin a negotiation until you can agree on the common ground.
But only 8% of British businesses even trade with the EU. You're talking about a tiny amount of businesses.
It's still our biggest our trading partner.
But we've had 6 years since the vote for our businesses to learn how to trade differently. And yes, there is a bit more paperwork, but they knew that. And I'm sorry, Brexit, there are pros and cons, right? But the most important thing is our politicians, we can kick them out for making laws we don't like. We can't do that in part of the EU.
Exactly.
It's not about economics.
Exactly. And the CBI and all of these folk need to start realising that we are not for turning. The British public are not for turning when it comes to Brexit. So today, when they say more migration,
But you say one not for turning. The poll that really worried me, Dan, was the YouGov poll this weekend, which said that 32% of people now believe we made the wrong decision.
I know, but imagine what would happen in this country if Brexit was overturned. There would be an entire generation who would lose faith with democracy and our institutions.
They have already.
Well, exactly, it's starting.
Say that,
but you try and overturn Brexit. What
does that actually mean?
I think if you try and overturn Brexit,
I hope you're
things
right.
would get very
I do not trust Westminster or the blob at all with Brexit.
Well, the blob,
it belongs to the people. We own it, and we will keep pushing for it. No one has the right to sell our sovereignty.
But this is a media campaign, as it very often is, as you rightly point out, Belinda, to make it look as if Brexit isn't working when actually we don't know. We went immediately into the pandemic, and I think you're right. Actually, it just works because we're in charge. But anyway, Belinda Lucy, Nigel Nelson, Karen Malone, thank you so much. My superstar panel are here all night. But coming up, Are Gareth Southgate's men an embarrassment to England for taking the knee at the Qatar World Cup hours after caving on rainbow armbands? Lawrence Fox weighs in shortly. But next in the clash, do Harry and Meghan really deserve an award for making unproven claims of royal racism? King Charles and Duchess of Sussex biographer Tom Bower clashes with broadcaster Jenny Barnett next, but it's your opinion that matters most. Email me dan@gbnews.uk. Tweet me using the handle @GBNews. Our poll running there too. The results after the break.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Time now for the clash. Now, despite Meghan Markle spouting weekly race-baiting rhetoric on her flop podcast and Harry cashing in on his family's trauma to flog his Me, Me, Me memoir, the Montecito Moaners are being honoured for their heroic stand against structural racism in the monarchy. The shameless pair will accept the Ripple of Hope Award at a glittering gala held by the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Foundation in December, based largely on their devastating, and I have to stress, unproven claims to Oprah last year that a senior royal speculated on Archie's skin colour. Awards host Kerry Kennedy, daughter of the assassinated former US Attorney General, justified the decision by saying they went to the oldest institution in UK history and told them what they were doing was wrong, that they couldn't have structural racism with the institution, that they could not maintain a misunderstanding about mental health. They knew that if they did this, there would be consequences. They have done it anyway because they believed they couldn't live with themselves if they didn't question this authority. I think they have been heroic in taking this step. What do you think? Do Harry and Meghan really deserve an award for making unproven claims of racism within the royal family? Dan at gbnews.uk, our poll running there too, at gbnews on Twitter. But to weigh on this now, Meghan's best-selling biographer, Tom Bower, and the presenter and actress Jenny Barnett. So, Tom Bower, this is an extraordinary decision, isn't it, by the Sussexes to collect this award?
Well, it's not extraordinary by them. For them, it's marvellous publicity and gives them credibility. What's extraordinary is that the Kennedys should demean themselves in this way, because in the end, Meghan lied about the idea that someone had said that about Archie, about his colour and protection and his title. That was an outright lie. But much worse, in my opinion, is Harry. Harry, in the Oprah Winfrey interview, contradicted his wife and said quite clearly that this thing about how Archie, a potential child, might look, arose soon after he met Meghan, long before they'd engaged, let alone that they got married and the rest. So he is now endorsing Meghan's lie. And that is just disgraceful, because not only is he endorsing the lie, but he's actually so disloyal, so treacherous to his own family, who he knows are victims of his wife, that again, I think, is just shocking. And also, let us not somehow think that the Kennedy Award is such a wonderful thing to receive. You know, the money from the Kennedy family came from the bootlegger, Joe Kennedy, who was an ambassador here in 1939 and sympathised with Hitler and thought the British should surrender to Germany. And he's the man who bought the election for his son in Chicago in 1960. And Jack Kennedy, although, of course, he's a most wonderful man and charismatic and everything, he is the man who started committing America to the Vietnam War and did nothing about black rights. That was done by his successor, Lyndon Johnson. So this whole thing is so besmirched. It's so ugly. It's such a grubby deal between the Sussexes and this woman Kennedy, and it's just shocking that it's happening. And we should really hope that King Charles actually says to his son, you go ahead with this and you're in real trouble.
But this is a really worrying sign, isn't it, Tom, about what's going to be in Harry's book? Because to me, the fact that they have accepted this award says we don't give a damn. As I've been saying for many months, I actually think now they're moving towards wanting to bring down the royal family.
And this is just the beginning. I've got news from America tonight that they've got a whole slate of interviews lined up in anticipation of the Netflix series, which starts in about 2.5 weeks' time. And, of course, after that, the book will leak. So there's a whole campaign on the way. This is just the curtain raiser to Meghan, the great Meghan, the great campaigner. It's really quite ugly. And in the middle, absolutely defenceless, is the British royal family and Britain's reputation abroad.
I mean, Jenny Barnett, how can Harry and Meghan win an award for an interview that was proven to be a pack of lies?
Well, who said it was a pack of lies?
Well, I can present you about 17. I mean, Tom Bower revealed a whole load of the lies in his book, Revenge.
OK. Kerry Kennedy also said that the Sussexes embody the type of moral courage that my father once called the one essential vital quality for those who seek to change a world that yields most painfully to change. And I think that's what's going on here. It is painful to even think of our monarchy as being racist, but we do know that there's structural racism. We do know that they had transatlantic slave trade deals. We do know that the Duke of Windsor supported the Nazis. We do know that even Harry wore a Nazi on his costume at a party. So Meghan Markle alleging that somebody up top of the royals made comments about her child's skin, I think actually has been blown out of proportion. In my family, we have black and we have white. And you say when a baby's born, oh, do you think it's going to look after Sarah, or will it look after Clarence? Look after them. The fact is, That's been blown out of proportion. And I think that what Kerry is saying, that we are living in a world that yields most painfully to change, and that the royal family does not address what's been going on. And I think, Tom, interestingly, I've watched you speak, and your books are brilliant, 26 of them. But I think there's a muddle. There's a muddle going on between liking Meghan Markle, whether she's ambitious, whether she's narcissistic, and the issue here of awarding somebody who's fighting against mental health and fighting against racism. And I say, good for whoever gets it. George Clooney got it, Desmond Tutu got it. They're saying good things.
I'll let you respond to that, Tom, but I also just want to point out that you revealed in your book, didn't you, that the truth about these royal racist claims.
Well, yes, absolutely. The truth is that it was a benign conversation between Charles, Camilla and Harry right at the very beginning of the relationship with Meghan, and it was just one of the two of them saying, probably your child will have ginger hair, but might have a coloured skin. Well, in the end, it was nothing, and Harry laughed. It had nothing to do with it. But I must tell you, it's not me that's blowing out our proportion. It's the Meghan and it's the Kennedys who are blowing this whole conversation out of proportion. It was an absolutely benign conversation with absolutely no consequences. And Meghan is setting herself up as this whole leader on racism. And I've got to tell you, all my research showed that until 2016, Meghan never even mentioned that she was mixed race. It became an issue for her because she saw credibility plus imposing as a mixed-race person, because until then she hadn't.
Tom used to describe herself as a Caucasian actor.
Exactly. I mean, this whole thing, she is just a terrific person for seizing on issues and self-promotion and publicity and all the rest of it. And it's not us who has made it such an important issue, it's the Kennedys who have made it such an important issue. They're the ones who've blown it out of all proportion, and it is damaging Britain, it's damaging the royal family, for one reason only, because it profits the Sussexes.
How is it damaging if you are exposing something that is pernicious in our society? We are not happy. What as she says, we yield most painfully to change. And what Meghan Markle has done, whether you like her or not, and I know you've had dealings with her, and I have no dealings with the royal family at all, but as a lay person, watching what's going on, listening to what you're saying, it is not damaging to anything. If the royal family stand up and say we are against any form of racism, that can only be good for our country and for the monarchy.
But that happens in any case. I mean, Charles has done so much to help deprived and diverse communities in Britain. The Princess Trust is all about helping all sorts of communities. And I resent the idea that Americans, with all their horrendous racial history, can teach England about racism. We are the most tolerant society. People cross the channel illegally because we're such a tolerant society. There's nowhere in the world that is more benign and more accommodating to Muslims and their freedom to prayer than Britain. The people in Britain are so lucky when they come
Jenny,
here.
By the way, Jenny, I'll let you come back, but I covered very closely the entire time Meghan was in the royal family. I saw absolutely no evidence of racism. What I saw was an entire institution trying to bend over backwards for this woman. But she wanted to be a victim, Jenny. This is part of her narrative.
Well, but this is what I'm saying, is that the narrative of Meghan Markle is not what's at stake here. What is at stake here, alongside people who are fighting for a fairer world, which all of us want in our own way, left or right, she's crowbarred something, and out have come little tiny worms and little tiny bugs. And whether you like the Kennedy human rights law or not, they are saying she has raised an issue, and that
she has raised it, but it's dishonest. That's the whole point. She's raised it on the basis of a lie, and this lie is damaging Britain's reputation and the royal family. And to honour someone who's making a fortune out of her lies is just horrendous.
No, indeed. Meghan's biographer, author of the book Revenge, Tom Bower, and the presenter and actress Jenny Barnett, thank you so much. So who do you agree with on this? Do Harry and Meghan deserve an award for racism claims in the royal family? Well, Julio said, I think Harry and Meghan do deserve an award for constantly winding up their critics. Yeah, I'll admit they're good at that. From Sean, the Beverly Hillbillies deserve nothing. All they want to do is make fun of the royal family. And from Duncan, yep, they do deserve an award. In the same way, I deserve millions for an unsubstantiated lottery claim. Your verdict is now in. Just 11% of you, with Jenny agreeing that Harry and Meghan do deserve this award for making unproven claims of racism within the royal family. 89% of you, with Tom Bowers saying they do not. Now, coming up is the MSM, so determined to make us submit to an extreme green agenda that they've started spewing, quote, anti-human propaganda. Well, tonight's Neil Oliver beams him on that at 9:50. But first, as England take the knee in Qatar hours after caving to FIFA over their rainbow armbands, are Gareth Southgate's hypocritical squad a global embarrassment? Lawrence Fox certainly thinks so. He'll join me next.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra. I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
It's time now for the Fox Report with Lawrence, and today the FA and the woke warriors in Gareth Southgate's England team proved they were nothing more than spineless virtue signallers by backing down to FIFA over their World Cup rainbow armband stunt. So the threat of a yellow card was enough for the FA suits to ditch their apparently highly prized social justice values and announce Harry Kane wouldn't send a flimsy message to the Qatari state by wearing a rainbow armband during the tournament after all. This was the England captain only yesterday boldly declaring he wants to wear the awfully named One Love armband.
Well, I think we've made it clear as a team and the staff and an organisation that we want to wear the armband. I know the FA are talking to FIFA at the moment, and I'm sure by game time tomorrow they'll have their decision. But yeah, I think we've made it clear that we want to wear it.
And that's the problem with this meaningless virtue signalling. England now look ridiculous and have proven they're prepared to throw their so-called morals out the window if threatened with minor sporting sanctions. But one pointless political gesture sadly did make kick-off as England's players took the knee to highlight injustice in one of the stadiums that poverty-stricken immigrant workers literally died to build. Predictably, the BBC and its lead commentator Guy Mowbray lapped up the gesture that does nothing to counteract the human rights atrocities committed in Qatar to deliver this despicable tournament.
And England's players will, as Gareth Southgate promised they would, take the knee, saying a strong statement to go around the world for young people in particular to see that inclusivity is very important.
Reclaim leader Lawrence Fox joins me now. Now, look, Lawrence, Wales players didn't virtue signal and they didn't take the knee before their 1-1 draw with the US this evening. So why do you think the England team did, and what do you think it says about them?
Well, England have stopped apparently kneeling to the housing conglomerate, which is Build Large Mansions, Black Lives Matter. And we now are kneeling to inclusivity, which is a strange word, comes along with diversity and equity. The question we should all be asking ourselves really is, why the hell are this team at the World Cup? First and foremost, seeing as most of the people that were involved in the organisation of this World Cup or the promotion of Qatar have been fired from FIFA. So it's a corrupt organisation in the first place. And then also, instead of getting on your knees, chaps, the most diverse England football team you can ever see, of all shapes and colours and hues and sexualities probably, even though they haven't admitted it, why are they not doing the haka? Why are they not scaring their opponents, going, we're going to beat you, instead of kneeling in supplication? The only thing you should kneel in supplication to is the Queen or your wife.
Well, indeed, it's a subservient act, isn't it, Lawrence? But fundamentally, hasn't it been proven to be absolute rubbish? I mean, they don't really care about anything, Lawrence, because the moment they're threatened with a yellow card, they say to hell with it.
I know. I mean, I bet... Let's face it, we'd hope more of them get yellow cards so that they're not able to play in the final and miss their penalties. It's just appalling. The whole idea...
But they were good today, Lawrence. They played well today. You've got to give them that.
I don't know. I don't watch it. I've about as much interest in the England football team as I do in North Korean state television. So the world is full of politics, Dan. It's everywhere. And, I just want a 2-week break where I can watch my national team play football without being told by a bunch of them. They can't sell the we're all racists to their fans because they're kneeling against their fans, these guys on 200 grand a week. So now they're turning around and going, it's about inclusivity. What are you including? Who are you including? Are you including the women in Iran, in Qatar, in the gay and lesbian people? I mean, it's another example. We talk about this all the time. We must decolonize. You know what this is? This is recolonizing. It's colonizing a different culture. And I happen to, annoyingly for most people, I'm on the side of the Qataris here. We know nothing about their culture, me included. We know absolutely nothing. And for us to turn up and think we can virtue signal our way through telling people how they should and shouldn't behave. Of course, I stand against their stance on gay and lesbian rights, but this is it's no different from the withdrawal from Afghanistan and the pride flag hanging over Kabul University. We're trying to colonize them with wokedom, and actually what we should do is decolonize wokedom from this World Cup. But the most important thing is that we shouldn't be playing there in the first place. If you don't agree with what they're doing, if you don't agree with the cultural values and the cultural norms of the country that you're playing in, don't turn up.
Totally. That's the thing for me. I think the Qatari regime is completely despicable, right? But actually, the best thing, Lawrence, about this World Cup is there are now a whole load of people who we can ignore forevermore. If they ever try to preach or berate or lecture folk like you and me again, we can say bog off, rack off forever. You know, Gary Neville, Gary Southgate, Gary Lineker, David Beckham, and Lawrence, the BBC. You know, Alex Scott goes to the stadium today but decides to wear her One Love rainbow armband. It's meaningless. You are still broadcasting from there. You are part of this.
Well, and also I'm listening to Alex Scott because I had to YouTube it because I don't watch the BBC. So I YouTube their coverage of it. And Alex Scott's talking about LGBTQ plus IA, whatever. I'm just like, hang on a minute. Everyone's an individual. Yeah. Why are you suddenly start some giant alphabet soup that we're now going to sort of
do not call me LGBTQ plus IIIA. I find that just as offensive, BBC folk.
Well, and also we're lecturing a different culture of which we know nothing about unless we're going to drop bombs on them to steal their oil, about what a woman is and what women's rights are and LGBTQ rights. In the West, we can't even tell you what a woman is. We literally cannot explain it to you. If you ask someone in the West what a woman is. So I don't think the West has any moral high ground here whatsoever. And I think Harry Kane sat there, all 7 brain cells of him, trying to explain why he's going to wear this armband saying one love. One love of what? Just tell me what you're loving, Gary. I just want to know, or what's his name? Harry. You know, they're all the same. You know, what do you love? What is one love of what? Yeah. One love of everything. Surely, if it's inclusive, why don't you just draw every game? Why don't you give the game to the other person but out of diversity?
Well,
because you can have a diverse victory for Iran.
That will probably be suggested quite soon. That will probably be suggested quite soon. I mean, look, all this proves to me is that the England team were absolute idiots to go so far down this route of virtue signalling. That's all it is. They don't actually care about this stuff. They're not actually prepared to lose any money from it. They're not even prepared to take one yellow card for it. So stop it. Stop taking the knee. Just get out there and play.
100%. Just let us support you. We want to support you. You know, someone was pointing out to me the other day the Queen's funeral and how moving it was to them. And it was, you know, England is the most diverse, tolerant, wonderful place in the world. And we don't need to sit there and be lectured to by old, you know, a bunch of footballers who look like they've been hit in the face by a shovel. It's like, just kick the ball around, try and win, and we'll cheer. But save the political posturing for politicians and commentators. You're a sportsman. Play football.
Hey, Lawrence, well, I've got some very good news, right? For people who are attempting to boycott this World Cup, they have a perfect way to do it on Friday night because the debut of Lawrence Fox here on GB News is at 7 p.m. on Friday. It may be the exact same time as the kickoff in the England versus US game. But, Lawrence, you know what? I will be with you, OK? I will be with you 7 o'clock Friday night. I will be watching and we will speak next week. Good luck. Thank you, Lawrence. Thanks. But coming up, is high-tax Hunt conspiring to overturn Brexit? And is the return of Boris Johnson the only way to rescue the government from Ramona's? I'll explore with my superstar panel. Return for the Media Buzz at 10. We'll also see how the papers react to England's virtue signalling too. But first, is the media pushing anti-human propaganda in its bid to make all of us go green? Neil Oliver shares his fears that net zero will make the family go extinct. Don't miss him straight after the break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel. Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Neil Oliver is tonight's outsider. You would have thought BBC journalists had finally understood their impartiality rules after colleagues were rapped for biased on-air comments in recent months. Well, the corporation's climate editor, Justin Rowlett, didn't get the memo when reporting from the COP27 conference over the weekend.
The language on cutting emissions is really disappointing. It almost, in parts, mirrors word. It's like they've cut and pasted the Glasgow Agreement from last year, put it in their document, and then actually dialed it back a bit. So there's talk about low emissions energy sources, and I've been asking everyone here what that is. The Norwegian Environment Minister accepted that it could include gas. So this is an agreement that could allow natural gas, obviously a fossil fuel, to be part of a green solution, which I have to say does sound crazy.
Yeah, much like the rest of the MSM, the Beeb now seems content with driving climate change fearmongering in full force. And not just happy with being anti-capitalist, the Green agenda has now descended into what Neil Oliver calls anti-human propaganda. So that includes a tribe like this from the New York Times, who last year asked to breed or not to breed in the face of climate catastrophe. The Guardian got it in the act too, while the likes of far-left US politician Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez suggested it was not OK to have children. Prince Harry, meanwhile, even got an award for virtuously saying he had helped the planet by having no more than 2 kids. So, Neil Oliver, why are the media and establishment types pushing this anti-human agenda?
Well, I think that mass movements of the sort that's being pushed, you know, they're trying to get everybody lumped together into this campaign of Agenda 2030, Net Zero and all the rest of it. And throughout history, and you need to look no further back than the 20th century and the horrors there, mass movements are always anti-family. They always find family and the tight natural bonds therein to be antithetical to what they want to do, which is to atomize people. They want people to feel alone, to feel isolated, so that they become units and numbers and cogs in machines rather than parts of family. And family is the basis of community, and they don't want people to feel part of community either. They need to get people, deracinated, cut away from their roots, so that they feel alone and they look always and only to the state for everything. And it's the transhumanism that's there, where there's, Elon Musk and the rest talking about blurring the boundaries between human and machine, making people combinations of flesh and blood and technology. That's profoundly anti-human as well. And, what you highlighted there in the package and in those headlines from various publications, this idea that we ourselves, the people, our species, are the problem, is profoundly anti-human. They've got an obsession with there being too many of us, that the world would be a better place if there were fewer of us. And that's beyond the fact that it's cruel and anti-human and leads inevitably to the decline, if not the destruction of our species, as is evidenced by, plummeting fertility rates around the country. The reality is, the more people you have, the more ideas you have. Civilization, the species was held back for hundreds of thousands of years because there weren't enough of us. Bright ideas, brilliant ideas, the cure for cancer, who knows, might have sparked into being in the head of one individual. But that individual was not surrounded by enough like-minded people to kindle that spark into a fire. And it took until there were more of us before we started seeing the advances. It wasn't until 1800 that the population of the planet reached 1 billion for the first time. No. It then took 125 years to double. And then 30 years to get to 3 billion. At the moment, we're adding 1 billion people every 15 years or so. Now, the point is that the more people you have, the more potential that you have, the more ideas you have. People together working, who are fed and looked after in the way that we can do, provide us with the solutions that we need going forward.
So, Neil, given this agenda seems to be everywhere, right? All over the MSM, you've got Harry and Meghan seemingly supporting it. How can we fight back against this narrative? Because, honestly, there are lots of young, woke kids or teenagers who are not considering starting families for this reason.
Well, we need means that are separate from the political arena. Yeah, I believe that the world of politics is so toxic now as to be beyond redemption, and I have turned my back on it. And I think we need to find other ways of being together and communicating and sharing messages. We need first and foremost to reassure one another that, going forth and multiplying is a good thing. That you don't just replace yourself on the planet. Ideally we need more children. We've got a plummeting rate of fertility, and we need to do something about that. But I think, in answer to your question, Dan, the solution is inevitable. The species will prevail. What is being pushed is unnatural and anti-human. And for those two reasons alone, it will fail. Now, I wouldn't be so bold as to put a time limit on it. I don't know when it will fail and we will prevail, but we will, because we are part of nature. We are part of the natural world that they claim to be out to defend, and actually they are destroying it. They are destroying the planet with their anti-materialism, their rampant consumerism. Given time, we will re-emerge because we are meant to be here. And our success is inevitable. We've just got to wait for them to fail, because they will.
Good. A positive note to end on. Neil Oliver, a pleasure as always. And of course, Neil back at 6 o'clock Saturday night here on GB News. But coming up, as one of the country's biggest anti-Brexit advocates is ushered into the heart of government, is Brexit now under threat? Co-founder of Vote Leave and Britain's first UKIP MP, Douglas Carswell, delivers his verdict. It probably will shock you at 10:20. But first, with the globalists and the Tory party attempting to push us back into the grip of the EU, are Tory MPs right to consider BBB? Bringing back Boris Johnson, the man, of course, who got Brexit done. We'll debate that and have a first look at the newspaper reactions to England's virtue signalling victory in the media buzz straight after the break. We're back in 2.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, as the globalist regime within the Tory party plots to drive us back into the clutches of the EU with help from arch Ramonas like this, who are now at the heart of government.
It will destroy the public services in this country. It will compound the social crises that many of us are living through. Or we can choose to stop Brexit, and we can choose to stop Brexit.
So is there anything that can be done now to save Brexit? Co-founder of Vote Leave and Britain's first UKIP MP, Douglas Carswell, delivers his battle plan at 10:20. Plus, is now the time to bring back Boris Johnson, the man who got Brexit done? I'll debate with the formation of a new Tory resistance next with my superstar panel, Carol Malone, Nigel Nelson and Belinda DeLucy. Should England have taken the knee against Iran after compromising their morals over rainbow armbands hours earlier? And will the disastrous decision to award Qatar the World Cup sink FIFA? Will former Three Lions star Matt Letizia breaks down all of that, plus Wales' return to the biggest state in football. He's live with me at 10:45. As she launches an appeal today, should we even be considering returning ISIS bride Shamima Begum's UK citizenship? We'll debate at 10:30. Plus, as David Beckham's talentless son is mocked for a cocktail.
Very experimental. I love trying to make new drinks, trying new recipes. I'm a nutter in the kitchen.
He was making a gin and tonic. And a sting in the tail, courtesy of Joe Lycett, has made golden balls look like I'm sure you can finish that off yourselves.
I never expected to hear from you. It was an empty threat, designed to get people talking. In many ways, it was like your deal with Qatar, David. Total from the start.
So we'll have a double bill of Beckham blunders in the media buzz throughout the next hour. We'll have tomorrow's newspaper front pages the moment they drop too, and a new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass, so do stay up with us. But first, the latest headlines at 10 with Tamsin Roberts.
Dan, thank you. Good evening from the GB Newsroom. Wales have ended their 64-year wait to play at the World Cup after drawing 1-1 with the USA in their first match. While fans there can be seen celebrating after Gareth Bale scored the equaliser from the penalty spot. Earlier, England won their opening match against Iran, winning 6-2 with goals scored by Bellingham, Saka, Sterling, Rashford and Grealish. Speaking after the Wales match, fans say the game was worth the wait. Prime Minister says he will place innovation at the heart of his government agenda. Addressing business leaders earlier, Rishi Sunak said re-establishing stability is the critical first step to stabilise the UK economy. He told delegates controlling inflation was key to improving living standards and to putting the economy on a stable footing for the future. A court has heard a woman who left London to join so-called Islamic State 7 years ago was influenced by a determined and effective ISIS propaganda machine. Shamima Begum's lawyer says she should have been treated as a child trafficking victim. The 23-year-old is appealing the removal of her UK citizenship after it was revoked when she was found in a Syrian refugee camp. She has denied any involvement in terror activities. Human rights lawyer Harjap Singh Bangal says Begum should be treated the same as a British citizen would.
The issue is, if she's a British citizen, which she is because she holds a British passport, or she did hold a British passport, a British citizenship, then should she be treated like other British citizens, or should she be sent to a country where she's not born in, she hasn't lived in, just because the basis that her parents came from there?
An earthquake in Indonesia has killed 162 people and injured more than 700, according to local officials. The epicentre of the 5.6 magnitude earthquake was in the West Java region, about 75 kilometres from the capital, Jakarta. Rescuers are trying to reach survivors trapped under the rubble after at least 25 aftershocks hit the region. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Dan.
Tomorrow's News Tonight now on our Media Buzz. Got the first front pages here, straight to the Metro, which minimises the England team to pay tribute to the Iranian football team after they refused to sing their national anthem in protest of human rights violations in their home nation. Now, Southgate's men beat Iran 6-2 after taking the knee. However, they were condemned for caving to FA pressure to ditch their rainbow armbands. The Eye leads with the EU's warning to PM Sunak over what they call fantasy Brexit plans. They accuse Number 10 and the Treasury of wishful thinking over their claim that they can pursue closer relations with the EU without adopting laws such as freedom of movement. The Independent reports that Labour will pledge to relax immigration rules in their strategy for economic growth. Of course they will. It will be open borders under Keir Starmer, who will say in a speech tomorrow that he will be pragmatic on migrant workers. We know exactly what that means. My superstar panel back with me now. Top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, political editor for the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People Nigel Nelson, and the former Brexit Party MEP and political campaigner Belinda de Lucy. So, after a disastrous autumn statement from our new socialist government, an exclusive poll for GB News shows national support for Labour has swelled 5 points to a massive 47% compared to the Tories' 21%. So this is the survey of British adults by People Polling, which also revealed voters overwhelmingly back Starmer over Sunak to best handle the economy. I mean, how astonishing is that? So, with electoral disaster seemingly looming, what does that mean for the future of the Conservative Party? Well, Boris Johnson's enemies might have thought they'd finally exercised the former PM when Sunak scuttled into Number 10 without a vote. But it appears the spirit of Bojo still lives on. Around 40 of his supporters from the Bring Back Boris WhatsApp group dined on French food at the Escargot restaurant in Soho last week to plot his return as leader. The gang allegedly included former Business Secretary Jacob Rees-Mogg, former Minister James Dudderidge and former Conservative MEP David Campbell-Bannerman. So according to the Daily Telegraph's Associate Editor Christopher Hope, also a superstar panellist sometimes on this show, the consensus among diners was that Boris could return in July next year after the May local elections, which are forecast to be a blowout for the Conservatives. A Boris comeback in the summer would also allow him to get past that pesky Privileges Committee, which is probing whether he deliberately lied to Parliament over Partygate. It is a witch hunt. It is a witch hunt, that, folks. Belinda de Lucy, look, I know people say this is absolute madness, but look at those Sunak poll numbers. The Tories can't trust him on Brexit. They can't trust him to lower taxes. They can't trust him to lower the levels of immigration. I mean, I actually think it could be fertile ground for Boris come next July.
Yes, I think that I'm not surprised that there are a lot of MPs wanting a new captain as they're seeing their ship with the supposed sort of grown-ups in the room sinking it quicker than you can, you know, I don't know, say Father Christmas. But I think they're watching the destruction of their own party and everything is falling apart. And so they're grasping desperately at the only man who can increase their polls. However, I am concerned this rose-tinted glass look at Boris is just not very fair, because Boris really, when he was in power, you know, illegal immigration was high, mass immigration was high, the public sector was still politicised. You know, he isn't this sort of magic pill that will save the Conservatives from obliteration. If he comes back a reformed man, maybe, but I think the only hope for the British people is to not vote for Conservative or Labour and, you know, to find another party to vote for, because nothing changes if nothing changes.
I mean, Carol, you know I've always said that Boris Johnson wasn't perfect. There were lots of things I criticised him for. He was way too quick to put the country into lockdown, for example, and he didn't take action on the illegal boats quick enough. However, Carol, he was a hell of a lot better than what we've got right now. He got that mandate. And I'm sorry, Conservative MPs, really, they're going to be, come next July, Carol, they're going to be staring electoral oblivion in the face. Are they really going to leave him on the bench?
If you'd said to me 2 weeks ago, and I think you probably did, actually, that Boris may come back, I'd have said nonsense. However, this stuff that's just blown up this week, you know, with Rishi and with Hunt and the Remainers' voice that's coming out, I think it's quite worrying. And I think, you know, that this will help him come back. And I think the crucial thing is going to be the elections in May, the local elections. And if the Tories get trashed then, what else are they going to do other than bring back the guy who delivered their greatest electoral victory in living memory? And the thing, you know, I was also thinking today, you know, I'm so angry at the Tories because all this kind of upset started over an argument whether Boris had a slice of birthday cake and a glass of Prosecco. And then the Tory party went into meltdown and they decided that Liz Truss was going to be their saviour. They had her for a month. She's not their saviour. They decided Rishi was going to... They do not know what they want. And the result...
Sunak also got the fixed penalty notice, by the way.
Yeah, well, exactly. And the result has been the obliteration of the Tory party. They will lose the next election and they will deserve to. And I think the only last-ditch hope is that if Boris could... You know, there is no Brexit voice in government anymore. There is no vocal champion of Brexit.
And the ERG are quite quiet now.
Yeah.
Because they're putting party before country again.
Well, everyone is sort of nursing their wounds, but I think they are biding their time, including the Trussites. I mean, the thing is, Nigel Nelson, we are starting to see the true Labour agenda emerge now, aren't we? That story on the front page of the paper tomorrow, it's going to basically be open borders under a stump.
Well, it's going to be open borders under the Tories.
I agree with you on that, Nigel.
At the moment, that they need to fill an awful lot of vacancies, especially in health and social care. The predictions are from the Office of Budget Responsibility is that immigration will settle down to about 205,000.
Yeah, well, it's too many. Well, what are you hearing about Boris Johnson? Because obviously you're our Westminster insider.
Yeah, and I don't think he's coming back.
Do you not?
No, I don't.
Do you know,
the reason I don't think so is that there's no vehicle for it. A, they don't want to go back to the chaos of Boris Johnson. B, there is a feeling at Westminster that things have calmed down and finally the grown-ups are in charge.
Yeah, but the polls are as bad.
Yeah, exactly. But do you not remember when the Sunak was in the leadership battle and he was going to come back and then suddenly he withdrew and said, you know, I have much to offer, but now is not the time. And what they're saying now the time will be July, after the elections, after the, you know,
but
after
it means
the hearings.
deposing another Prime Minister.
Yes, but the thing is, they're going down the toilet anyway. So it actually, you know, we've had 2 in 3 months, so it actually doesn't matter.
Well, Boris, I mean, Nigel, when you look back to those polls, right, when this despicable coup against Boris Johnson was undertaken, despite the MSM having been, and I put you in that category, I'm afraid, Nigel, having been on a deranged campaign against Boris for 8 months, he was like 5 points behind in the polls, right? Look at the polls now. This is a disaster for Sunak. Boris is a winner. And eventually, the fact that Boris is an election winner, won't it focus the minds of the Tory MPs who right now think, oh, this is lovely, having a grown-up in the room in Sunak. Oh, well, he's a grown-up who hasn't been elected by anyone, and he's not going to win.
The polls are a disaster at the moment, largely as a legacy of Liz Truss. because the economy is in such a mess.
Well, why have they? Well, why has Sunak not had a boost? Every new Prime Minister gets a big boost, right? You look back, it doesn't matter how bad they were, how short they were there for, Gordon Brown, whoever, they get a boost. Sunak has had no boost in the polls. So you can't blame that on Truss.
The economy is in such a mess that he had to come up with the autumn statement, which I agree was horrific, but horrific in a good way, in the sense that it did calm the markets, and that's the kind of
well, it may have calmed the markets, Carol, but it's finished the Tories.
But the CBI said today this is a doom and gloom budget for business. So on the one hand, you've got Truss's, budget freaking the market, and you've got this one freaking business, and it really is a doom
and freaking everyone else,
and
Carol.
freaking all of us. I mean,
because our living standards are going to go down.
But I don't think that the Conservative Party care if they lose the election anymore.
I think they want to.
I think they want to.
I agree. And that's the only reason they won't BBB.
Exactly.
They're already sending out their CVs, these Tory MPs, and actually they're crazy. They should BBB.
Do you not think people like Hunt, knowing that they're going to lose the next election, Hunt wants the door open back to the EU.
Exactly.
So he's going to put
they would vote Labour in.
Of course he does. And he's setting it up perfectly.
Yes, he is.
For the Ramona-in-Chief and Starmer.
It's a great conspiracy theory.
I know, it just occurred to me today.
I think you say it's a conspiracy theory now. Let's wait 3 years and see what Starmer's doing as PM. Now, last week, Qatari pin-up boy David Beckham was challenged to end his heinous £10 million deal with the human rights abusing Gulf state by lefty agitator Joe Lycett. When Beckham held firm, the comedian seemingly made good on his threat to shred £10,000 of his own cash, prompting a backlash on social media, given the ongoing cost of living crisis. But today there was a twist in the tale, as Lycett revealed he had already donated the five-figure sum to gay charities, and the whole endeavour was a ruse to make golden balls look like a golden fool.
I haven't quite told you the whole truth, because the truth is the money that went into the shredder was real, but the money that came out was fake. I would never destroy real money. I would never be so irresponsible. I never expected to hear from you. It was an empty threat, designed to get people talking. In many ways, it was like your deal with Qatar, David. Total from the start. There is one thing I'll shred. This is your Attitude magazine cover from June 2002. The first ever cover of a gay magazine with a Premier League footballer on it.
Well, whatever you make of licensed politics, he certainly got us all talking, well, all of us apart from Bex, bringing new meaning, I guess, to the term hush money. Belinda DeLucy, Nigel Nelson, Karen Malone, do stand by, because coming up, should we even be considering letting the ISIS bride Shamima Begum regain her UK citizenship? I say absolutely not, but some on my Superstar panel have a different view. But first, is it too late to save Brexit? Co-founder of Vote Leave and Britain's first UKIP MP, Douglas Carswell, delivers his battle plan to keep Brussels at bay. He's live straight after the break.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Now, as I broke down on the top of the show on my digest, the greatest threat to Brexit since that game-changing vote in 2016 is upon us, courtesy of Fishy Rishi Sunak and his high-tax Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, who seem intent on forcing us back into the clutches of the EU. The PM has denied claims he wants a tighter Swiss-style relationship with the undemocratic bloc, but there hasn't been a strong defence from the Chancellor thus far. In fact, total silence. Even more worryingly for the future of Brexit was the news this evening that famed Ramona Will Dry, best known for parading around trying to overturn the referendum with pro-EU activist and total weirdo, it has to be said, Femi Olawale, as part of the Our Future, Our Choice movement, has been ushered into the heart of government as an advisor in Number 10. I mean, what more proof do you need? To break down this perilous time for the biggest democratic decision in Britain's history, the co-founder of the Vote Leave campaign and Britain's first UKIP MP, Douglas Carswell, who in his new Daily Telegraph column urges the Tories to emulate their US counterparts, the Republicans, by returning to their Conservative roots if they want to keep the country on track. Douglas Carswell, goodness me, can you believe what's been going on here the last couple of days when it comes to your beloved Brexit?
It's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
We thought we had settled this question in a referendum. We thought we had settled this question with the 2 general elections that have happened since the referendum. And yet here we are with Treasury officials. It's clearly come from the Treasury. Someone in the Treasury briefing that we should have a Swiss-type relationship. A couple of things. Not even Switzerland, I believe, would want to start off, if they could start from scratch, would want a Swiss-type relationship with the EU. One of the reasons why a Swiss relationship with the EU would be so bad is because if we were to have a Swiss-type relationship with the EU, it would be dependent upon the goodwill of the EU. And the one thing we've learnt over the past 4 years is Britain cannot rely on the goodwill of the EU. So it would be absurd to go down that route. The real question is, who on earth is briefing this?
Well, Douglas, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm pretty certain this was Jeremy Hunt himself. He had a meeting with the Sunday Times after the autumn statement, which was disastrous, by the way. He has been stony silence today, Douglas. If this wasn't him, why would he not just come out and say, no, it wasn't me that leaked it to the Sunday Times? And you only have to look at the track record of Jeremy Hunt, Douglas, to be incredibly concerned. I mean, I'm sure you remember, but after the referendum, he was proposing a second vote or a Norway Plus style deal that would have tied us to the EU, including free movement. So this isn't a guy who has ever believed in Brexit.
Well, to be fair to him, I don't know for sure who briefed this, and you can guess, but I don't think you know for certain who briefed this. What I think
I don't, in fairness, I'm just speculating.
Okay. It's likely to have come from within the Treasury. And what's so alarming is that over the past few weeks, since the coup d'etat against Liz Truss, we really see the Treasury technocrats taking charge. They're taking charge of fiscal policy, of tax-raising policy, and now it seems they're even making a play to try to get control of Europe policy. I would argue that the Treasury orthodoxy has been a disaster for this country. It has produced 10 or 15 years of very low growth, poor productivity, Osborne economics. It's been a disaster. The idea that they should now be trying to undo Brexit, I think, is extremely alarming. Do you know, when I listen to things like this, I think actually Britain needs an early election. And the reason for that is simply because, there'll be a lot of Conservatives and a lot of people on the centre-right like me who instinctively wouldn't want an early election because of fear that actually the other lot might win. But hold on a second. If you're going to have Conservatives governing as pro-EU socialists, you might as well have an early election so that we can actually, put it to the people. And if the people reject socialist conservatism, we can actually have a real socialist government, and the Conservatives in opposition might come to their senses. I'm not sure that there's anything to be gained by 2 years of reheated Ted Heathism or reheated John Majorism.
No, I mean, I never thought I would say this, Douglas, but I am coming around to that idea, actually, because what I worry about is the damage that could be done by Hunt over the next couple of years if he does remain in number 11. And isn't that just opening the door to a likely Starmer premiership actually moving forward, even in terms of forging even closer ties with the EU? Because we know what Starmer thinks. He wanted back in.
I mean, if I was to give my political analysis, I think I would always factor in that there is going to be, or very likely to be, a Labour government. The issue is how much damage will there be to the Conservative cause, how much damage in terms of a loss of seats and a long-term damage to their credibility. I think the best the Conservatives can do is actually to try and be properly Conservative and to face an early election. Trying to take the John Major option of remaining soggy, soft left, but to delay the moment of reckoning for as long as possible. That's what led to the catastrophe of 1997. I think actually the Conservatives, if I was a Conservative, I would be agitating for an early election. I think there's a real danger that we're going to have 2 years of left-wing government in a Tory name. And what that does is it actually opens the door for Starmer to be even more radically left-wing. I think we're in danger of discrediting the centre-right alternative, and perhaps an early election is now the least worst option.
Does there need to be a resurgence for a UKIP-style party, perhaps led by my colleague here on GB News, Nigel Farage?
I hope that we would have learnt that an insurgent third party has to perhaps be optimistic rather than pessimistic. It has to be built on real Conservative principles rather than an angry, shrill philosophy. Yes, I do think there's scope for a third party. At one time, the Liberal Party was that alternative. I don't think it's an insurgent party at all now. It's part of a soggy centre-left elite consensus. I do think there is the opportunity for that third party. But, as I experienced firsthand, it's pretty difficult given the British electoral system to break through. We got 4 million votes. Myself and Mark Reckless were the only 2 candidates returned.
No, indeed. Well, look, fascinating analysis. Founder of the Vote Leave campaign, of course, the first UKIP MP in history, Douglas Carswell. Thank you so much. But coming up, will the knee takers of England continue their virtue signalling, and will the disastrous decision to award Qatar the World Cup sink FIFA? Former England star Matt Le Tissier live with me at 10:45. But first, as Shamima Begum launches an appeal today, should we even be entertaining restoring the former ISIS bride's UK citizenship? We'll have that, the return of my superstar panel, and more newspaper front pages in the media buzz straight after the break.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
More of tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. Let's go straight to the front pages. Is this Partygate 2.0? Say it ain't so. Amid the cost of lockdown crisis, the Daily Mail exclusively reveals MPs can now charge taxpayers for their Christmas bashes under the expenses scheme. That is outrageous. The Guardian, leading with reports that Dominic Raab is facing fresh questions over his behaviour during his first term as Justice Secretary. According to the paper, Raab reportedly behaved so badly in a meeting in the Home Office that the department's top official personally apologised to counterparts to prevent a formal complaint. I wonder if he threw some lettuce across the room or something at this rate. I think this is just a beat-up, if I'm honest. Over to the Telegraph, where Sir Keir Starmer is vowing to help the British economy become less dependent on immigration. This is from a speech tomorrow designed to reassure the public that Labour is reconciled to our future outside the EU. As if I believe that. The Times reports that patients with advanced cancers could see their life expectancy double within the decade thanks to cutting-edge new treatments. The prediction is part of a new paper from the Institute of Cancer Research. My God, that is some much-needed good news. And hooray, Jude, brackets, and Saka twice. Sterling, Rashford and Grealish say the Sun, after 19-year-old Jude Bellingham inspired England's best ever World Cup start, a 6-2 victory over Iran this afternoon. And Matt Letizia joins me to discuss whether the barnstorming performance was overshadowed by their virtue signalling in just a few minutes' time. But right now, the superstar panel is back. Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, Sunday Mirror political editor Nigel Nelson and former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucia. Earlier today, former ISIS bride Shamima Begum launched her latest bid to have her UK citizenship restored after it was revoked by then Home Secretary Sajid Javid in 2019, claiming she is no longer a threat to the public. Lawyers acting on Begum's behalf argued to the Special Immigration Appeals Commission that she had been groomed at the age of 15 for the purpose of bearing ISIS fighters' children in Syria, and claimed the British government did not formally assess whether she was a victim of trafficking before putting her in, quote, exile for life. MI5 have claimed it is, quote, inconceivable that Begum would not have known that ISIS was a terrorist organisation before she joined them in 2015. The government also pushed back on suggestions Begum had been rendered stateless, pointing out she is entitled to Bangladeshi citizenship through her parents. The Home Office's view, of course, is that Begum remains a risk to national security, although earlier this year she insisted in a GBNews interview from her Syria refugee camp that she wanted to help Britain tackle extremism.
Come and spoke to you, would you be willing to tell them how it happened?
Of course, yeah. I actually think it's important that they know so that they can prevent it in the future for other people.
Because you said Boris doesn't it doesn't know. You obviously know Boris is there. What do you mean by that? Do you think the British government...
No, I just mean like the fight against terrorism is not a one-man job. It's multiple people with multiple skills that,
And
you know...
do you believe that you have the tools?
I do, yeah.
To stop kids?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, Carol Malone, this is the problem our country's in, isn't it? Because these lefty lawyers would rather do everything possible to get a terrorist back here.
These lawyers are saying that she was groomed before she left here. I'm sorry, people have forgotten. She left here at a time, she was 15 years old, she left here at a time that we were seeing on television in this country beheadings, people being set fire to in cages. We knew ISIS were doing it, we saw them brandishing the knife, and then we saw what they did. So those girls were 15 years old, they knew exactly what they were going to join. And anyone who says that they were groomed, at 15, you're not stupid, you're not a child, you can say that on TV and you know it's wrong. And yet still they went anyway. And they made their own way there. This girl joined a death cult. Not only did she join it, you know, she was actually sweeping up the severed heads while she was there. There are rumours that she was recruiting people, that she was involved in all of that. And the trouble, you know, the courts are talking about her being trafficked. This is not about trafficking. This is about a threat to national security. And our security services are saying she is still a threat. The former boss of our security service, a guy called Neil Basu, he said returning women jihadis are a huge threat to this country. Whitehall officials have said exactly the same thing. Everyone is saying these girls are dangerous, and we're supposed to believe her. When she was first brought to the Syrian camp, she did not denounce ISIS for at least a year.
No.
She was saying how...
Quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite. And it was only when she realised that by denouncing them, she would actually get back here. And there was a journalist, a Sunday Times journalist called Louise Callahan, and I remember her pieces at the time, and she said she spoke to lots of girls who were saying, oh, you know, we were tricked, And Louise Callahan said they were lying through their teeth, that these girls were jihadis and they supported ISIS. And Begum herself, I remember she said something once. She said that she thought beheadings and all that was normal for Islam. She thought that was okay.
And she wasn't even prepared to say how despicable the Manchester bombings were. I mean, she is unbelievable. This is a terrorist, Nigel Nelson, and you want her back. You want her back in this country.
I wouldn't say I want her back. What I do think is she has a right to be back because she's a British citizen.
Well, she's also a Bangladeshi citizen.
She's not.
She is.
No, she's not.
She has the right to be.
She has the right to be, and Bangladesh doesn't want her because she hasn't got dual citizenship. So what we should be doing is she's a British citizen. That's what she is at the moment. We should be following the lead of America, Germany, another 8 countries. I think Finland's got back 35 of their people. Denmark's got 90.
Yeah, and believe me, taking back ISIS brides
when it comes down
politically
to the security issue, much better to have her in this country where we can keep an eye on her.
Because
rather than being in a camp where she'll be radicalised.
Nigel, right. Well, she can do what she likes over in Syria.
No, she'll come here. She'll come
MI5 here are already monitoring between 3,000 and 4,000 extremists. She's going to be another one. If she gets back here, she's going to be unemployable. This government and the British people are going to have to pay for her for the rest of her life.
She may end up on trial.
She wants to come back here and have a normal life. Yeah, when the death cult ISIS didn't work out, so she wants to come back.
But she could well be on trial.
And what sort of example does it set, Belinda de Lucy? What sort of example does it set to other young teenagers who might be thinking of joining one of these radical groups if they know, oh, if it goes wrong, we can just do a Begum and get back?
What it says is that to all the British Islamists out there, and there are quite a few, go off and fight for a terrorist organisation that enslaves, murders, rapes, and you'll come back and get off scot-free, because what really sticks in my throat about this is that there's the Islamist apologists, always on the left, are saying, oh, we need to offer this girl compassion. No. They never talk about the Yazidis, not once. Well, the crimes of ISIS against the Yazidi people are not theirs to forgive. It's not mine to forgive, they're not yours to forgive.
And I agree with that
need to
completely,
stand
Belinda. But what about the victims?
Soil.
But what about the victims of the Manchester Arena bombing?
Oh,
I mean, there are victims of ISIS right here around the time that she was in the death cult.
No ISIS fighter or anyone involved in ISIS should step on any British soil until they've stood trial in Syria and they've looked those Yazidi victims in the eye and those Yazidis have seen justice. What people on the left want is for those poor Yazidi victims to see no justice at all, because when they come back here, the burden of proof is too high. They do not get justice in this country. They won't be put in prison.
Do you remember in this country when all this was happening, when the ISIS thing was decided, this government made it perfectly clear. They said anyone who leaves this country to go and fight for ISIS will never return.
Not if they're British citizens, but they have a right to return.
No, she doesn't. No. When you go and your aim is to destroy the West and to destroy this country, do not expect to come back into this country and live courtesy of the taxpayers.
No, but she's our responsibility.
She's not, because her citizenship.
The Home Office made a decision to reverse to rescind the citizenship.
Against international law, because it left her stateless.
Well, she's not stateless.
She can go. She can go and apply to Bangladesh.
They won't have her.
Yeah.
Well, then tough.
They're trying every excuse under the sun, like, oh, we're only being harsh on her because she's Muslim. Well, Jack Letts, a.k.a. Jihadi John, a white, Oxford-born British boy, got his citizenship removed when he joined ISIS. It's got nothing to do with her race.
Exactly.
She's a threat to national security.
There are some decisions that you make, and no matter what age you make them, they are so big, they are so catastrophic that you're just going to have to live with them.
Exactly.
She's one of them.
But also, we have to set the right example to other potential young terrorists in this country. Now, on a much lighter note, after being made an example of for taking Qatar's filthy money, I imagine David Beckham is in need of a stiff drink. And he certainly won't get that in the nation he's currently shilling for, will he? So enter his hopeless son, Brooklyn, who, after failed attempts at becoming a photographer and a celebrity chef, is now attempting a career in mixology. So more than a year after I sent him viral for making a bacon sandwich, not very well, during a cooking segment on US TV, Brooklyn, who's now pelts Beckham, by the way, after marrying his trouser-wearing wife Nicole in April and taking her name for some reason, left the internet in a state of disbelief after showing off his extraordinary creative flair and mind-blowing liquor knowledge by making a gin and tonic.
I'm very experimental. I love trying to make new drinks, you know, trying new recipes. You know, I'm a nutter in the kitchen. You get Monkey 47. I pour about that much, and you get your mint, quite a lot of mint, and you give it a quick squeeze, just so it gets all the smells out. Your rosemary, tonic water, give it a quick stir. That is really good. Wow.
He's making a gin and tonic.
Why doesn't this boy just give up and live off his wife's money? This is... do you think he understands he's a worldwide laughing stock now?
I mean,
do you think he gets
a bacon sandwich and then a gin and tonic.
And it's gin and tonic. Do you remember when he was a photographer ever. And then published this book of the worst photographs you've ever seen.
I know, but it's like
He'll be a landscape gardener next week and say, oh, have you ever planted a carrot?
But gin and tonic, right? I mean, you put the gin and you put the tonic in.
Yeah.
Oh, bless him. He's a lost boy with not the right advisors around him at all.
Belinda DeLucy, Nigel Nelson, Karen Malone, do stand by. I need a gin and tonic after that. But coming up, are medicine delivering drones really going to save the NHS? Find out who in the Cabinet suggested that bird-brained idea when I crown the first Greatest Britain and Union Jackass of the week at 10:50. But next, in Uncancelled, should the England football team have taken the knee while not wearing their rainbow armbands at the match today? And will the disastrous decision to award Qatar the World Cup affect FIFA's long-term reputation? Former football star, England star too, Matt Le Tissier is live in just 2 minutes' time. Don't go anywhere.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
It's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, England opened their Qatar World Cup campaign in style today as they thrashed Iran 6-2 in an action-packed match in Doha. But the victory was overshadowed by the FA's 11th hour U-turn on their hollow, I would say, rainbow armband stunt after FIFA threatened to yellow card England captain Harry Kane if he wore it. So, yep. Apparently, it's that easy to derail the England team's woke crusade and prove it's nothing more than a virtue-signalling mirage. They did manage to squeeze in one empty political gesture, though, as they took the knee in a stadium built on the bones of poverty-stricken immigrant workers. Before the World Cup had even kicked off, FIFA President Gianni Infantino, who conveniently calls Doha his home, sparked outrage by claiming Europe should apologise for 3,000 years of wrongdoing before they criticised Qatar's treatment of migrant workers. Then he went full tonto with this bizarre rant.
Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled. Today I feel a migrant worker.
Oh, goodness me. I'm joined now by former England football star Matt Le Tissier, who is going to be with me every Monday night. So, Matt, has this bloke lost all credibility for his organisation? Actually, the whole corrupt Qatar World Cup after that bizarre moment this weekend?
Well, in all honesty, Dan, I think FIFA has been a lost cause for a long time, even before Infantino took over. I mean, before that, you had Sepp Blatter. You saw all the controversy that surrounded him, the allegations of corruption and bribery that went on in awarding the last 2 World Cups. So in terms of FIFA losing its integrity, I'm not sure it actually had any to lose in the first place. But I think that it was a pretty bizarre speech, to say the least, given that he'd already, a few days ago written to all the nations and said, can we please concentrate on the football? And then all of a sudden he's there doing a 55-minute monologue, which was nothing to do with the football, which is quite bizarre. And then he turns up in the stadium at the first match and does a speech in the stadium. I mean, who does this guy think he is? But I guess if you've just been re-elected unopposed, you probably feel like you can do whatever you want, really.
No, indeed. The whole thing is bizarre. FIFA's conduct for the past 12 years, I think, has been a complete disgrace. So you're right, they are a lost cause. The England team isn't, Matt. They performed very well today. But I have to say, I was embarrassed for them, Matt, over this whole sham rainbow flag thing, because it's such a tiny, pathetic little gesture anyway. But if you say you care so much about social justice and then FIFA threaten you a yellow card and so you drop it immediately, to me it proves why they just need to keep the politics out of this. Stop taking the knee, stop the virtue signalling stunts and just focus on the football, Matt. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong in any way, shape or form, Dan. Keeping politics out of sport is probably the best thing that we could possibly do to save our sport, because at the moment our sport is turning a lot of people off of watching the World Cup, and I can understand why they feel that way. I think, you're right. It was such a small gesture in the first place, and all of a sudden the threat of a yellow card. Ooh. Very scary. The threat of that meant that they changed their mind and they weren't prepared to take that risk.
I know, Matt, because Matt, just imagine, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr. Oh, you're going to be threatened with a yellow card, so we're going to drop this whole civil rights thing. Matt, they do not give a damn. They don't give a damn.
They don't, and I think it just goes to prove what a lot of people are saying about it. That it is pure virtue signalling, and they don't really. They're not 100% wholeheartedly behind it. And I was listening to your show earlier, and I think Lawrence Fox made an incredibly good point when he said you've got 2 choices. You either go to that country knowing and respecting what they stand for. Or if you don't like what they stand for, you don't go in the first place. It's pretty simple. And if you want to make a real statement, then you boycott the World Cup. And what would make an even better statement is if they boycotted FIFA and rescinded their membership of FIFA, because that organisation is rotten to the core.
Exactly. But you can't do both. That's the thing I completely agree with, Matt. You can't do both, because I never want to be preached to again, I'm sorry, by Harry Kane and Southgate. Now, just like I never want to be preached to again by Gary Neville, Lineker, Alex Scott, David Beckham, they've all taken the money. And that's fine, by the way, Matt. I'm actually not criticising anyone going to Qatar. As long as you don't virtue signal and preach to me, because I think everyone has a right to go. I get it. Sport is about big business. Look at where all of the Formula One races around the world are. But just don't preach to me when you're taking the dirty Qatari millions.
Yeah, and I think it's also important, Dan, you don't pick and choose which countries you start criticising for their human rights, because I don't remember anybody on the BBC criticising China when they had the Olympics there a few years ago. Not a word was said about it. So it's if you're going to be consistent, the only thing that people will ask for is that you can be consistent. If you're going to criticise one for their human rights, you do it to everyone, and you might want to start looking at America as well.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the point. You wouldn't be able to play sport anywhere in the world. So that's the annoyance for me, the hypocrisy aspect to it. But, Matt, it would be remiss of me to not ask you about the actual football today, because after a run of 6 losses, it felt like this team was finally back on fire again.
It certainly did. I thought it was an excellent performance today. I thought the opposition were probably not as good as I thought they might have been. I thought it might have been a bit more difficult to break them down, but I always felt like once we got on the first goal in the game, then I felt it might be a bit more comfortable, because they were one of those teams that might just want to sit in, be compact defensively. But we broke them down fairly early on in the game and took real advantage of it. I thought it was a really good performance.
Matt Le Tissier. And, of course, Matt will be back with me next Monday night. Thank you so much, Matt. Great to speak. Have a great week. But it's time now to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Carol Malone, who is your nominee for Greatest Britain?
So let me preface what I'm about to say with, I've spent the last 2 weeks railing against the hypocrisy, the One Love armbands, the gay pride jets, Gareth Southgate. However, I watched the match today. The boys played incredibly well. They played smartly. They played as a team. The fans were, like, delighted. And for them, I'm delighted. So I'm going to make my Greatest Britons the team of footballers.
Nigel Nelson.
Well, this is going to be popular. I'm nominating Harry Kane for knowing when he was beaten and putting the hopes of the nation before anything else.
Do you think Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King would have been proud of his civil rights advocacy? I don't think Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King would have been playing in the World Cup.
Nigel's not going to win tonight, is he, Dan? I just sense it. So. I sense it.
Yes, I thought that.
Belinda de Lucy.
My Greatest Britain is Conservative MP Ben Bradley for coming out today and saying male teachers should be the focus of recruitment in schools, highlighting the fact that 1/3 of schools in many areas of the country have no male teachers at all. And it is so important for young boys, especially without strong male role figures at home, to be around role models that can earn their respect. I think it's a wonderful thing, and he's always championing young boys, and I respect him for that.
I think you're so right, actually, and not just because Carol and Nigel's choices today are absolutely awful, but Ben Bradley is tonight's Greatest Britain because he is here tomorrow night on the show, on The Outsider, to talk just about this very important issue, which I'm passionate about too, Belinda. Carol Malone, redeem yourself, please, with your Union.
OK, you'll like this one. This is one called Kerry Kennedy. She is the daughter of Robert Kennedy and the niece of JFK. She runs a foundation called the Robert F. Kennedy Foundation, and she's given Meghan and Harry an award for branding our royal family as racist. It's called the Ripple of Hope Award, and she's given it because she says Meghan and Harry have called out structural racism. Oh, no, they didn't. They made an allegation that has been totally unproven, and they just said it. So I'm going to start saying things now and just hope I get an award for it. I'm going to just make up any old toddy and hope I get an award.
Yes, Tom Bauer had a very good take on that, including, by the way, looking back at the Kennedys' history on all of these things as well. Nigel Nelson, your Union Jackass.
Yeah, it's going to be Rishi Sunak at today's CBI conference when he was talking about drones taking prescriptions to far-flung patients, when what he should be talking about is how to get ambulances to every patient who's suffering a heart attack or a stroke.
OK, and Belinda de Lucy,
that is a good one.
My jackass has to be the FIFA president, honorary one, Gianni Infantino.
Apparently I said his name wrong earlier.
His unhinged speech of I am disabled, I am gay, I am a migrant, get in the bin. He's probably on about £1 million a year. How on earth has he got any clue what it's like to be a migrant worker in Qatar? Utterly ridiculous. Sounded bonkers.
But apparently he's paid $3 million a year, believe it.
$3 million!
But for me, actually, what the most shocking thing about what he said was, oh, just forget about the human rights abuses in Qatar. You can't say anything if you're from the West because maybe 3,000 years ago you were involved in slavery. Yeah. No, we judge each other by today's standards, and homophobia is wrong, and the treatment of women as a second-class citizen is wrong, and the deaths of immigrant workers to build your crap stadiums is wrong as well. But I'm going to go with Carol Malone, actually. Kerry Kennedy, the Union Jackass. Thank you so much. To the aforementioned Carol Malone, Nigel Nelson and Belinda de Lucy, thank you for your company. I'm back again tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Next up, though, it's Headliners. Good night.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not
the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Hello, good evening from the GB Newsroom. I'm Tamsin Roberts. Wales have ended their 64-year wait to play at the World Cup and drawn 1-1 with the USA in their first match. Fans there can be seen celebrating after Gareth Bale scored the equaliser from the penalty spot. Earlier, England won their opening match against Iran, winning 6-2 with goals scored by Bellingham, Saka, Sterling, Rashford and Grealish. Speaking after the Wales match, these fans say the game was worth the wait.
Tense, everything you could expect from a first World Cup game for like 64 years. But yeah, I'd have liked to see us playing a little bit better in the first half. But you know, the nerves stayed in the end, and we come through like so. It's good, yeah, it's good.
Absolutely worth the wait. I mean, they made us wait a little bit about the first 45 minutes, but I thought the second 45 minutes absolutely superb for a man. Rob Page's substitutions were great. It was well worth waiting 64 years for.
The Prime Minister says he will place innovation at the heart of his government agenda. Addressing business leaders earlier, Rishi Sunak said re-establishing stability is the critical first step to stabilise the UK economy. He told delegates controlling inflation was key to improving living standards and to putting the economy on a stable footing for the future. A court has heard a woman who left London to join so-called Islamic State 7 years ago was influenced by a determined and effective ISIS propaganda machine. Shamima Begum's lawyers say she should have been treated as a child trafficking victim. The 23-year-old is appealing the removal of her UK citizenship after it was revoked when she was found in a Syrian refugee camp. She's denied any involvement in terror activities. Human rights lawyer Harjap Singh Bangal says Begum should be treated the same as a British citizen.
The issue is, if she's a British citizen, which she is because she holds a British passport, or she did hold a British passport, a British citizenship, then should she be treated like other British citizens, or should she be sent to a country where she's not born in, she hasn't lived in, just because the basis that her parents came from there?
An earthquake in Indonesia